President.
Recognize the senator from Indiana.
Ask for unanimous consent to suspend the quorum call.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we leave for the weekend, I wanted to take a moment and just come down to the floor and give the President a lot of credit for a great State of the Union speech on Tuesday night. It was my 8th State of the Union speech. I spent 8 years in the House, and now the second State of the Union speech I've heard as a United States Senator for Indiana. And it was truly the best State of the Union speech that I've ever heard. And it was especially important to me, special for me, rather, to have my younger brother, 10 years younger than me, Bradley Banks from Columbia City, up in the gallery in the House to watch the State of the Union speech. He too loves President Trump and what he stands for, and to have him be my special guest was a special moment for me, for him to experience a great speech as well. As President Trump said 2 nights ago, the State of the Union is strong, and that's thanks to President Trump and his great leadership. It's been incredible to see what a difference just 1 year makes, and what a difference President Trump has made in this first year of his second term, especially after 4 disastrous years with President Joe Biden in the White House. President Trump listed a number of reasons why the State of the Union is strong, but just to name a few of those reasons and give President Trump a lot of credit, because of him, our border is completely secure. What a night and day difference that is from what it was just a little over a year ago when President Trump came back into office. Inflation is at its lowest level in more than 5 years, thanks to President Trump. Gas prices are down below $2.30 in most states. Incomes are rising again. The stock market has set 53 all-time record highs since President Trump's election in 2024. Fentanyl moving into our country is down 56%. The murder rate has had its single largest decline in American history. And America is respected on the world stage, perhaps unlike ever before, because of President Trump's incredible leadership. As President Trump said at the State of the Union, quote, "Our country is winning again." I loved hearing that from him. It made me so proud to be a United States Senator serving with President Trump in the White House once again. And while President Trump was celebrating our country, while he was saying that we have, quote, "achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before and a turnaround for the ages," Republicans stood to applaud while Democrats sat in their seats. It was really shocking, Mr. President, to see Democrats refusing to stand up and cheer for American greatness. It was shocking to me. I couldn't believe it. While President Trump asked Congress to stand up and show support if they agreed that, quote, "the first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens," the Democrats sat in their seats. They refused to stand up and cheer and stand with President Trump, with all of us, Mr. President, on the Republican side, and agree to that simple statement. None of them agreed, not a single one of them, not a single Democrat in the House chamber, House members or senators on the Democrat side, none of them agreed that the American government should prioritize their own people above everyone else, especially those who come here illegally. What a disgrace. I'll never forget that moment, standing and agreeing with President Trump and clapping and cheering and in agreement with him that it is our fundamental duty, the first duty that we have in this government, to put our own citizens over those who come here illegally. Democrats would rather be spectators to America's demise than champions of American greatness. That's what it told me when I saw them sitting in their seats and all of us standing in agreement and cheering for American greatness and what makes this country great as expressed by President Trump. When President Trump urged Congress to pass the Delilah law, which I introduced in the Senate yesterday, and what the bill does is it keeps our roads safe from illegal immigrant truck drivers. Delilah, a beautiful 7-year-old girl up in the audience in the gallery with her dad. When she was 5 years old, she was hit by an illegal immigrant driving a semi-truck and seriously injured. Even to this day, she's made a remarkable recovery, but still injured to this day. When President Trump called on us, Mr. President, to pass the Delilah law to stop illegals from driving on our roads and driving a semi-truck with a trailer, when he called on us to pass a simple common sense bill to take CDLs away from illegal immigrants, Democrats once again refused to stand up and acknowledge that that's the right thing to do, that will save lives in our country by getting illegals out of semi-trucks. They couldn't stand and applaud for a lot of other things either. Mr. President, the President of the United States in his speech talked about lowering prescription drug prices. Republicans stood in agreement with him, and Democrats sat on their hands. The President talked about no taxes on tips, a big part of our signature tax cuts for working families bill that we passed last year. I can remember distinctly on the campaign trail, Democrats talking about no taxes on tips, and then every one of them voted against it. And when President Trump championed it in his State of the Union speech, Republicans stood in agreement and Democrats sat on their hands. The President talked about passing the largest tax cut in American history for working class families like yours and mine, Mr. President, a tax cut that is significant. In Indiana right now, by the way, early tax returns for Hoosiers, 10.9% increase in those tax returns from a year before. That's real. That's significant money in the pockets of hardworking Hoosier families, people who go to factories every day or work in hourly wage jobs, the real hardworking men and women that make my state and this country great. When President Trump talked about that and how significant that is, Republicans stood in agreement and cheered for it, and Democrats sat on their hands. The President talked about banning radical transgender operations. Again, common sense. Republicans stood in agreement and cheered in support of President Trump's common sense policies to protect our kids. Democrats sat on their hands. He talked about so many other issues. It was one issue after another that puts the American people, the American workers, American families first and in a better position. Republicans stood in agreement. Democrats sat on their hands. Mr. President, as a son of a retired factory worker, my dad worked at Dana Corporation in Fort Wayne. He made axles. He got up early every morning. Sometimes he worked the third shift all night long. Belonged to a union. He was a hard-working union man all of his working life at the factory, and put food on the table, provided for our family. As a son of a factory worker, and the grandson of a union coal miner who was a FDR Democrat, right? I mean, my grandpa, my family, they thought the Democrat Party represented the working man. It's clear to me, Mr. President, now that this is not my grandpa's Democrat Party. My brother Bradley, who works for the Columbia City Street Department, gets up every morning and he happens to have a CDL. He drives the snow plow. He works hard to keep our small hometown in Northeast Indiana clean and the streets taken care of. He doesn't wake up like you and I do every day and think about politics and what's going on in Washington, D.C. He wakes up every day and thinks about working hard to provide for his family. When he sat up in that gallery on Tuesday night and watched this historic State of the Union speech, the longest State of the Union speech ever, but the best State of the Union speech that I've ever seen. He couldn't believe it. He had a view from the gallery watching this speech, watching the president talk about how great our country is, putting people like him in a better position to take care of his family, and the Democrats sat on their hands. They couldn't even cheer on the greatness of America and the good things that are happening in this country. Mr. President, it's clear to me that the Democrats just can't handle the truth. They can't handle the truth that 250 years after this nation's founding, we have so much to be proud of. We are proud of the gold medal U.S. Olympic hockey team who brought golden glory back to the United States 46 years after the Miracle on Ice. We are proud of our heroic soldiers like Chief Warrant Officer Eric Slover and the 100-year-old Navy fighter pilot, Captain Royce Williams, who both received the Congressional Medal of Honor during the State of the Union speech. What a great moment for us to experience on the floor of the House on Tuesday night. And we are proud that the greatest nation in the history of the world will celebrate its 250th birthday in just a few months. Mr. President, the state of our union is strong because President Trump is putting Americans first. 250 years after a small group of brave men founded the greatest nation on earth, the United States remains the best and strongest country ever. We are still a nation of builders, warriors, and champions, and thanks to President Trump, we are stronger than we've ever been before. That's worth getting out of your seat and standing and applauding and cheering and being in support of. Mr. President, I thought the President of the United States gave an incredible State of the Union speech. It was great. It made me very proud to be an American, and I'm grateful for his leadership. With that, I yield back.